Hello, everyone. My name is Nadini. I'm part of Link4's marketing team, and I will also be your host for the day. First and foremost, thank you to everyone who has joined with us today. We're just about to start in a little while, but we're going to wait maybe a few seconds longer just to wait for anybody else who's joining the session today. And while we wait, let me remind everyone that today's webinar is an industry-focused session. And along with knowledge on e-invoicing, we will also be sharing the benefits of e-invoicing for government suppliers in New Zealand. And it's a session that we believe will be very beneficial to both government organizations as well as government vendors. Also, since this is a webinar, you will not be visible or heard today, but you can use the Zoom chat feature to share your questions. And it will actually benefit everyone who has joined us today if you do have questions. So please share them as they come to mind, and we will tackle them at the end of the session. All right, so I think we can start. Today's webinar is titled E-Invoicing for New Zealand Government Suppliers, Knowledge and Benefits. And as you would have seen from the invitation, our speakers include Aaron McCash, who's here with us today, and he holds the position of Manager Technology at MBIE, as well as our very own Robin Sands, Link4 CEO. So please pay close attention now, as I will be handing the controls over to Aaron to cover an introduction to e-invoicing. Aaron, over to you.
Thanks, Nadini, and thanks, Robin. Just while I share my screen here. Cool. All right. Well, firstly, thanks for the invitation to come along today and speak about e-invoicing. It's something my colleagues are very passionate about, so it's nice to be here. So I was going to be joined by Linda, who actually looks after most of the communications with our suppliers to government, but unfortunately she's not feeling the best, but she sends her best, and you've probably actually already seen a lot of her communications anyway. So yeah, I've stepped in to assist. So today I'll give a bit of an overview of e-invoicing, the network, some of its benefits, and then roll through what central and local government are doing, and then some next steps as a supplier to government. Cool. So what is it? So we should, if you're familiar with e-invoicing, interoperability is the key here, and we're looking at digitally exchanging financial information between supplier and buyers systems using the PEPAL network. How we like to think of this is that it's very much like a phone network, if you think of it like that. It doesn't matter what type of phone or what carrier you're on, you can still send a message to someone on a completely different, using a completely different handset or a phone or a carrier. So that's how we think of the PEPAL network, if you like, but we're really here at MB promoting interoperability as the key, and keeping things all digital. So often what we encounter when talking about e-invoicing is sort of what it is and what it isn't. So if I can start on the left to say what an e-invoice actually is. So it's we use, so we've subscribed to the PEPAL specification or standard here, which is essentially a file, and in there's a whole range of fields, and it's able to be securely transmitted through a network using accredited access point providers such as Link4. We also sometimes get asked what invoice is not, so it's not a PDF. We're moving away slowly from PDFs. It's not paper or emailed invoices, which then have to be processed manually. Again, coming back to that PDF theme, so it's not a scanned or an OCR type solution, and it's also not a system that pays an invoice. Unfortunately, it's the way to get your invoice from A to B, and I'll expand on that a bit more. So why e-invoicing? Why has MB decided to be the people authority and then promote e-invoicing in New Zealand? Well, equity of access, I think, is the first one. So connect once, connect to all. Once you've signed up or able to access the network, you can essentially send invoices to any buyer within that network, and it's all done in a standardized way. We have had some research over time here in New Zealand, but also in Australia around that it can save time, particularly around processing, error reduction in terms of scanning, and that's not just at the sending side, but it's also at the receiving end as well. You can also, it also guarantees that your invoice will get to the buyer through the use in New Zealand of the NZBN identifier. So it's almost like your address key. And so there's no waiting around or getting lost in those buyers' email inboxes, which sometimes can happen. Yeah, direct and secure, that's quite a key one. I think it's one of the key benefits of transacting within PayPal. It uses quite a well-known document standard, if you like, called AS4. So there's actually no looking inside the invoice as it's transacted through the network. There's no manual intervention. It's purely shipped through the network to its destination via address validation on the way through. So that's the NZBN number. And what we get a lot from receivers is this improving this financial visibility, because the data is coming through in real time. It's not waiting to be processed in transit, etc. Enables a bit more accurate cash flow forecasting, analysis, and visibility as well. And then, yeah, those kind of two are sort of intrinsically linked there as well. Another benefit for senders as well, because you can get the right information. You can structure the information about how the buyer wants it. So whether it's like a PO number or some kind of cost center reference for that receiver, once that information is within the invoice and it's getting transacted through on the receiver's end, payment can often happen smoother and ideally quicker, because you know, the information is all there and the receiver is able to automate as much as possible. And that's one of the benefits from that system to system connectivity that we see. And I will touch on another reason why invoicing as well, particularly from the New Zealand government standpoint. One of the key drivers to getting government receiving and paying e-invoices was to promote faster payment times, so we can get the cash back into the New Zealand economy, so we can support those small businesses, and that's been a really key goal over the past sort of 3 years. So where are we at? Well, and what's going on? So I mean, e-invoice is here and it's growing. There's 16 central government agencies who can receive now. There's a couple who are very close to just testing at the moment, and then the remaining other central agencies are on the journey to upgrade their FMISs or sign up with access point providers to get onto the network so they can start receiving e-invoices. That's sort of a more in the B2G and the B2B area. There's over 6,000 businesses actually now received, and we're seeing growth of about 300 businesses registered on the network a month here in New Zealand. So there's some really good work going in from the adoption team here at MB, really to drive and to encourage both sides, not just sending but also receiving of e-invoices as well. We do find, and we do like to keep sharing the messages that it is actually reasonably simple to get going with e-invoicing. This is not a big transformational project. Like I said, all the transformation will happen within your own business process area, but getting an invoice from A to B using the PayPal network is actually reasonably quite straightforward once you're connected either through an access point provider yourself or actually becoming a provider yourself as well. And what we're seeing more and more now is that many software providers, those that provide accounting software packages or larger ERP packages as well, are becoming capable either through their partnerships or through upgrading their own, well, not even upgrading, but through configuring their own software to be able to send. And that's quite exciting as well. And when I get to it at the end as well, I can show you on our website now, we're actually starting to publish those software providers who are actually able to transact a PayPal document or any invoice, if you like. Now, central government, back last year, government was set targets directly from the minister. This was a very strong directive. Was that by July 2023, which is not too long a long away now, 10% of all invoices need to be e-invoiced to government, and that moves through to 90% by 2026. So government, particularly central government's all in here, and this is the way forward for AP. Now, this is again supported by a faster payments expectation. This is not a legislative requirement. This is not a directive. This was an expectation set by the minister. Is that all central government agencies will pay their invoices to suppliers within 10 working days, and there's a whole reporting framework around that. And these agencies are expected to report quarterly on their performance, and that's between these two initiatives. That was, as I was touching, was about getting the cash back into the New Zealand economy. This faster payments expectation was set around 2019, so it's been in a while now, and e-invoicing is really just starting to take off now over the past sort of 18 months. Some specific activities going on in central government. Well, my team, if you like, continues to support the adoption. I work very closely with central government agencies, getting them set up and ready. We're very fortunate to have a very engaged minister as well, who is keeping an eye on how these agencies are getting up and running, and starting to onboard their suppliers as well. And as I mentioned before, there's 16 at the moment, with a few more to come on very shortly. Those agencies are not quite there, have all been communicated to with expectations that they will not only become enabled, but also meet that 10% volume target by July next year. And so the team at MB is really concerned with helping those and supporting those agencies in the best way possible. And there's lots of different ways we've been doing that. We've updating the all of government contracts. So if you're a supplier to government, some of those contract templates and all those agreements are having wording updated to prefer e-invoicing. You can still send a PDF, that's okay, but we will be preferring e-invoicing. It's obviously that takes a bit of time to do that, but expect to be communicated through various procurement channels when that comes. And there's another interesting or supportive activity as well from IRD, is that there's been some changes or amendments, not changes, within the GST Act, which come into force next year, moving to better support e-invoicing and making the Act clearer around what a tax invoice, essentially moving from a tax invoice to a supply of information. And that's really just acknowledging that digital trade aspect which PayPal provides. So that's probably a real positive thing, and expect to see some more communications around that on IRD's website shortly. So around government suppliers, what has MB in its role as a PA been doing with so People Authority with government suppliers? And like I said at the start, Linda's excellent communications. You probably would have seen a few of those come out in various ways. So we've been communicating either directly with our wider suppliers to government, or and specifically some of those top 100 suppliers to government as well. And some of those, and some and many suppliers actually supply to many different agencies, which is quite cool. So there's been various emails to all of government panels. There's been other agencies, not just MB, so DIA has been communicating out through its all of government panels as well. There's been a focus on e-invoicing within various bulletins and newsletters, and you would have seen those if you subscribe to those. And then there is, and then like I said, and then there's the more direct approach, which is encouraging those government agencies, those 16 government agencies, to actually get in contact with suppliers and let them know what they need and let them know that they are ready to receive an e-invoice, and it will make paying invoices easier and more efficient. And we've also got some work underway, as I said before, so really to directly engage those suppliers who are dealing with 10 or more agencies, particularly central government agencies, and some of those, just calling out some of those categories there, such as recruitment companies, ICT services, stationery, telcos, and particularly taxi providers as well, because there's some big wins in there with some of those high volume suppliers coming through. So, but that it's not just a focus on just the large suppliers. This is very much there is also the very much keys for those so smaller suppliers as well, and often it's actually the sort of smaller suppliers who are a lot easier to get going because they're already using accounting packages or accounting software that's actually can actually send right now, so they can actually get ahead of the game. Great. And I will say another point to this is that the key here is working with your access point provider as well, or even just exploring your options for your access point providers as well, because they can often hold the keys as well to getting onto the network quickly and starting to transact as well. So like I said, it can be as simple or as hard as you make it. Local government. So it's not just all about central government. Local government within its sphere is doing quite a lot, actually. The team recently went out earlier in the year and surveyed local government, and found there's actually quite a definitely high awareness and interest particularly within councils, and they're actually already planning for it. Some are either already enabled through their own software, so they can actually receive e-invoices, and actually have even the business process internally to start driving some of those automation benefits. Now, some of those drivers we found about why e-invoicing would actually help councils would be, I'll sort of outline those in 4 points. One of the first ones there is that reduced internal processing costs. Yeah, we found that councils spend a lot of time manually inputting data, which is highly inefficient and can be error prone as well. And particularly a lot of using, because a lot of it's PDFs through to mailboxes, and then all that processing occurs there. Fewer invoice data and processing errors. Yep, that always slows things down, freeing time up to focus on high value business tasks. Yep, that's always a good one. And improve security, which is actually quite interesting because that was called out quite high actually. So that shows quite an understanding of local government within the and what the network can provide, what the access point providers can provide as well. So that's really, really, really encouraging. So just getting to the end here. So the next steps, if you're a supplier to government, and you want to know more, well, we've got a website, which is quite cool. There's plenty of information on there. You can find lists of software that's already enabled. You can find lists of accredited access point providers such as Link4, and you can find a whole bunch of other benefits, wording, tools, templates that might help as well. We also direct many of government receivers, agencies to the website, because there's plenty of communication toolkits there available to help them start engaging with you, the suppliers. And there's just some other tips there as well about understanding your position, how you can get started quickly. So talking to your own internal finance teams, understanding your software and its capability as well, because you might actually already be set up to be able to send e-invoices. The team, the e-invoicing team here also provide a NZBN matching service, so you can actually see who might be enabled within your customer base, and then it's yeah, again, like said, like identifying those within your customer base who can actually receive or even send, even if your suppliers can send as well. It's probably another point as well. And then welcome to contact MB's team as well. Here we can actually provide test invoices and send actually test invoices through the PEPAL test network as well, if you're doing proof of concepts and that kind of thing as well. And then alternatively, if these just have any other questions, concerns, want more information, please feel free to contact the invoicing at mb.govt.nz. The team's here to help, and this is what we do. So I'd like to hand over back to Dooney and Robin, and just say thank you very much for the invitation. It's been it's great to be able to take you through what government's been up to.
Thank you, Aaron. That was definitely a really insightful introduction and sharing with us what's happening with the New Zealand government. So now to share some more color to these thoughts and share some experiences from the e-invoicing community, I would like to cordially invite Robin. Robin, over to you.
Great, thank you, Nadine, and thanks, Aaron. That was good. It's a good overview. I'm going to probably add a bit more color and that to what Aaron's been talking about, but the whole concept here is about e-invoicing, so there'll be some similar thoughts that are coming through. And I'm just going to wrap it up into 4 main thoughts that we're going to talk about, of like why people do it, who is doing it, the government support, as well as how do you personally get your business up and running with e-invoicing. So there's potentially some other stories that'll come out here. And this is the first one. I'd like you to meet our restaurant owner here. And it didn't occur to me until was on this that his name is Aaron. Aaron's actually a real person. He was one of the first people we spoke to when we started e-invoicing and the journey back in 2016. He's a restaurant owner in the city here. They actually have a lot of coffee meetings there too, which is a good thing for us. But he got an invoice from his coffee supplier. He paid that invoice, but the coffee supplier didn't see the money. So what happened in that case? Well, Aaron became a victim of what's called a payment redirection scam. That is, the invoice was emailed to him, but it got intercepted. Bank details were changed on the invoice, and he ended up paying the bad guys. Unfortunately, payment redirection scams turn out to be quite successful against small business owners. Large businesses have processes in place to help counteract it, but small business owners are often the ones that get caught out. And it's the biggest scam against small business owners for the last 3 years, actually, and it's increasing. So the aspect of sending an email is not safe. The ability to send an e-invoice direct between the accounting systems is the answer. So with e-invoicing, there's no need to have emails and PDFs. The information just goes between the systems. And in fact, if you ask the question, what is an invoice? Like, how would you answer that? I used to say it was a piece of paper that had the information about a transaction. Reality is, it's just that data about the transaction that is the invoice. The piece of paper is what we use to take that information from the supplier's system and put it across to the customer's system. So we used to use paper, we often use PDFs, but we can just put that information from one accounting system to the other, cut out the middleman, make it real time, and protect it from scams. So there's actually a lot of reasons why people start to do e-invoicing. The main one we're finding at the moment is that security or that safety from scams. But there's also the aspect of faster payments. What we've experienced is if someone's sending an e-invoice, they're actually getting paid faster than if they were sending it in a traditional way. And some of our suppliers have seen a 50% improvement in their customers paying on time because of that. There's also storage savings. You don't have to print a physical document, you don't have to physically store documents. Better for the environment, saves things. And it's more efficient. Some statistics show that to process an invoice through its life cycle, it can cost like $30 per invoice. Now, a lot of small businesses say it doesn't cost us $30, but it does have an impact, even though it comes through that way. But to measure it against dollars, $30 for a physical invoice, $27 for a PDF, $9 for an e-invoice. So there's a difference there to show that an e-invoice is just more efficient for the business. Additionally, the bottom one there is that cloud accounting business systems can do e-invoicing very quickly and simply. and more of them are including it within their systems, and people have access to it without having to do very much at all these days. So there's actually a lot of reasons why people can jump into it straight away. So that's the first point. Why do people do e-invoicing? Well, it varies. It depends on your business, but there's a lot of reasons there that people choose to do it from. So who is doing it? Well, there's all the cloud accounting systems these days, as well as the ERP systems are all e-invoicing enabled or have ways to get enabled. So anyone who's using these systems can actively do e-invoicing. For example, if you've got Xero, if you've got MBIE, you can do, use e-invoicing through their systems. We also provide e-invoicing activities for them as well, which I'll talk a bit more about later. But this is the second point. Who's doing it? Kind of everyone. And as Aaron mentioned before, there's over 6,000 businesses in New Zealand that are actively doing e-invoicing today. Third point, what's the government doing? Well, there's a lot of support from the government, which is good. And I was really happy to see Aaron, running through some of those initiatives that are happening, not just with the central government, but with local government as well. And it's all around, being able to support small businesses. So central government, a number of them were up and running by March 31st. And with that goal of having 10% of the invoices as e-invoices by this time next year, you can see that the government agencies are really trying to get the benefits of e-invoicing across to their suppliers, which is a good thing. And there was the statement that came out from Jacinda Ardern's office about the ability to save the New Zealand economy $500 million a year if just 15% of businesses were doing e-invoicing. So there is a great deal of benefits for the whole economy if this can happen. And one thing I want to point out as well is e-invoicing is not a government initiative. There was hundreds of businesses in New Zealand doing e-invoicing before the government started, because there's great business benefits to it. So it's not just for the government. This is great for the business community. And it's really nice to have that support from the government to show that they recognize that it's good for everyone, but they also created a safe environment for that to happen. And for the lack of a better term, MBIE are the referees, or the ones that are overseeing the system to make sure that everyone's playing fair and doing the right thing, which is good. So really grateful for the support from the government. But the fourth point is, how do you get into e-invoicing? What do you need to do? If you're using a cloud accounting system, you can just go and create an account straight away. Usually, if you're on a cloud system, less than 2 minutes. So after you've finished watching this, you can actually go and create an account, be active on e-invoicing without any issues. If you've got a desktop system, or if you're running an ERP system, there's a few more complications. It's not quite as easy. It's still easy, but not as simple as signing up on a website. So get in touch with us. We're happy to tell you what your options are. There's no commitment to be, wedded to us at all, but we can tell you who in the market has got what solutions and what their benefits in that are. We've been around e-invoicing long enough now to have learned a lot of this, but we're not out just to, support ourselves, but to help create the network. And that's one of the good things I find about e-invoicing, is that e-invoicing suppliers work together because we know as a whole, the network supports everybody. And you need to use an accredited service provider. So it's not just a matter of having a piece of software that can, do something with an invoice. It has to be able to connect to the PayPal network, and you need to be accredited for that. And I'm just going to step out here and talk a little bit about Link4, just so you do know who we are. But we are an accredited service provider. And in fact, we only do e-invoicing. We don't do anything else, and we're pretty good at it. So we are leaders in several sections. We do have accreditation through MBIE, and there's also a PayPal panel that was set up by MBIE, and we've gone through the whole approval process. We're legitimate business. We do everything correctly. So there's 4 businesses that were approved by MBIE, and we're very happy to be a part of that. We also support thousands of small businesses using the cloud accounting systems. So we've been doing this for many years. And in fact, in 2016, we made both Xero, MBIE, even QuickBooks e-invoicing enabled. And that's not just with generic e-invoicing, which is what you get with Xero, but we also include the ability that you can get an alert when you get an e-invoice delivered, or you can see who's on the network before you create your invoice. And in fact, with Link4, you don't even have to know who's on the network. We'll send your invoice as an e-invoice if it can be delivered that way, or we'll send it as an email if the other side can't. But as Aaron said, there's hundreds of businesses signing up all the time. This is a constant thing of people joining the network. So it's can be hard to keep up with who's on the network. You don't need to worry about that. We can take care of that for you, and to make that simple. We also got the first enterprise onto the invoicing network. So BOC Gas is a big supplier to New Zealand businesses, been a user of Link4 now for several years, and a lot of their customers as well. And we're often the first with software, as I say, with Xeros and MBIEs. That's a given. But when you look at SAP, Technology One, MoneyWorks, a lot of these ones, we work with the software companies to make sure that their systems are e-invoicing enabled. So there's a little bit about Link4. Also, to become e-invoicing ready, I think this is probably one of the key points that you need to get. Set a date. A lot of people recognize the benefits, but unless you set a target date, it often gets pushed out. Other things come up. So set a date about when you want to do it, and then you can do it. Once you're connected to the network, tell everyone that you're on the network. So tell your customers that you can now send them e-invoices. Tell your suppliers you can receive e-invoices, and that helps build the network out and makes it easy. So that's the fourth point. That's why, that's how you can get enabled. And, once again, if you're on a cloud system now, you can just do it within a couple of minutes. So just in quick summary, the 4 points that we talked about there. Why do people do it? There's a lot of business benefits. It also benefits the economy. Who's doing it? Thousands of businesses, many joining all the time. So that's a continually growing number. Got great support from the New Zealand government. And also, if you want to start doing it, set a date. Happy to help you with that, but set a date and then you can work toward that. Most businesses can be up and running, within the day, or potentially 4 to 6 weeks is like a maximum there to get up and running. So that's the basic aspects of e-invoicing. So I'll hand back to Naduni now, and we can do some of the Q&A.
Thank you, Robin. Quite an informative presentation. But yes, let's now move on to the Q&A segment. Let me see what questions have come up. I will be reading them out one by one, and I will let either Aaron or Robin answer them. All right, so one of the questions read, how can I get all of my customers to accept e-invoices?
Yeah, look, I can take that one. I think importantly, you have to let your customers know that you're doing e-invoicing, and that can raise the questions about, what e-invoicing is. We have been onboarding customers and suppliers to e-invoicing now for like 6 years. So, we have tools in place that you can use. I think MBIE have some really good information on their website about what to do. And I believe Aaron and Linda and the team have got some tools as well that they can share to help get your suppliers and trading partners on the network.
Right. Okay, so moving on to another question. How do I know who else is doing e-invoicing?
I could probably take that one, Robin, if you want.
Very
good. So there's a register of participants that you can look up. But I think it comes back to Robin's point. I think is actually talking with your trading partners, because often many of them are actually up and running, and it's just that sort of connecting those partners, if you like, and keeping that communication open. I think it's what it does is encourages those buyers to actually go out and talk with their suppliers, and vice versa, which I think is always a positive thing. But there are specific tools, like I said, like around the PIPOL that's called a PIPOL registry, and that one can look up. Yeah.
Right. Thank you, Aaron. Okay, one more question. If you're sending invoices, do we still need to send the invoices via email?
No, I think that would defeat the purpose a bit then. No, e-invoicing, it's simple and it does work. It's you get a lot of confidence once you've done one or two, and you'll get to see that it happens. So as we say, sending via email is actually dangerous. It does open up to scams and open up to other issues. If you're still sending it via email as well, then you start to double up, and a bookkeeper can end up paying an invoice twice, which I have seen happen, and it's not pretty for either side. So yeah, e-invoicing is very solid. It's a great solution, solid network, just good to stick to that.
All right, go one more question. Is there any training available on e-invoicing, and what our team needs to do to process e-invoices?
Yeah, so I think if you're using an ERP system or something like that, you'll often have an implementation, and training comes with that. That is fine. But if you're signing up as a cloud accounting system, then you potentially don't get that same level of training. It's best to speak to your supplier. There are some videos out on YouTube that can show how it works. We're very happy to help educate people. A lot of our small businesses that use our system use it for free, and we provide free support for them as well. Just happy to get that network built.
All right. Okay, I don't really see any other questions that are coming in. So in that case, we can actually conclude today's session. So thank you, Aaron, for joining our webinar today and taking us through an introduction to invoicing specific to New Zealand. And of course, thank you, Robin, for sharing your knowledge about invoicing with the audience, with a special focus on its benefits for garment suppliers. And last but not least, of course, to everybody who's watching, thank you once again joining with us. Stay tuned, because we have several sessions coming up conducted by Link4 in the space of e-invoicing. We'll be making announcements across our social media platforms, or you might receive direct email invites. But if you have any post-session questions, please feel free to email us at connect@link4.co. Have yourselves a great rest of the day. Goodbye.
Thank you.